All right. Hi, everyone. Welcome to Mindgasms. So, we're going to do another movie chat today about the documentary called Mighty Ira, which Reid recommended. And, of course, got Reid back here, who I've talked to a few times, who I know from Mixed Mental Arts, and has a street epistemology channel about basically using the Socratic method to get into the foundations of why people believe what they do. And got Nathan here as well, who also has a street epistemology channel. And I talked with you once or twice before on those episodes that we did on the Mixed Mental Arts channel about that new book by Peter Boghossian and James Lindsay called How to Have Impossible Conversations. And yeah, I was inspired to talk with you guys about, like I told you guys before, because I thought it was really interesting when you guys did that analysis on the Street Epistemology channel on the street about the street epistemology conversation that Reid had with someone about whether Nazis should ever be punched. And yeah, this documentary, Mighty Ira, is very apt for that situation because he's a former ACLU director. I believe he was the ACLU director for New York, if I remember correctly. And he got famous for supporting civil rights, and then later on he got kind of infamous for defending the free speech of Nazis. And I forget the main guy, but one Nazi guy in particular who wanted to have protests. So yeah, these are very, very interesting issues to get into for sure. So I guess a good way to start off would be to I guess just to get your guys' opinions on the general issues that the documentary covers. Like I know I've kind of got an idea of your views through that street epistemology channel discussion that you guys had about it, but just for people who haven't seen those, like what are your guys' opinions about these specific issues?
Well, yeah, thanks, Andrew, for the invite. Nice to be on your show. So, yeah, I'm a big free speech proponent, and more broadly, liberal science proponent, which is free speech is a part of that. And yeah, we did that analysis of my conversation with I think it was some woman talking about if it was ethical to punch Nazis, and I think that was a microcosm of a broader issue of just what is the limit of offensive speech? Where does it ever cross the line into something that would be justified to have violence come into the equation there? And yeah, there's a lot to this topic, and I had just heard about this documentary from I forgot who made it, but it was someone related to FIRE, the Foundation for Individual Rights and Education, and I heard about it from the Reason podcast, I think, where Nick Gillespie talked with Jonathan Rauch. And Jonathan Rauch wrote the book Kindly Inquisitors, and the last chapter of Kindly Inquisitors, The Humanitarian Threat, is all about this topic of speech and violence and liberal science. And that's where most of my, I guess, values and ideas about this come from, and where my head is at. So that's what I think about it pretty much. If you've read that book.
Cool. Could I get you to turn up your volume a little bit there, Reid? I've just got kind of shitty headphones, so I'm having trouble hearing you a little bit.
Sure. And I'm, generally low
softly spoken.
I'll turn it up.
You do have a very soft, soothing voice too. Yeah. All right. So what are your thoughts in general about this, Nathan?
Well, man, it's one of those things where I feel like I have a lot to say, but I mean, I can sum it up pretty generally that like the more free speech we have, the better it'll be for society. Is like my worldview in a nutshell. And then there have to be some reasonable limitations to that. Like, can you yell fire in a crowded theater? Can you incite violence with your speech? If you incite violence with your speech, does that then make it justified to be met with violence, to have your rights taken away, to serve prison time? What should the punishments be in that way? So there's limits to free speech, though we want to like not put limits on if we can help it, and even for Nazis. And the reason why we want that is so we can figure out who they are, so we can have discussions with them, so we can temper worldviews that we deem harmful as a society. And how do we talk with and connect with people that we don't agree with? And I think encouraging freedom of speech is a way of identifying people we want to have conversations with. And if we make them feel like they cannot speak up, then we won't be able to identify them, and they'll just go on believing what they believe, maybe with other more detrimental, serious problems down the road. So, yeah, I saw the documentary. I thought it was a great documentary. I think I generally support everything the ACLU, was that the organization that he was a part of?
Yeah.
I'm supportive of everything that they were doing, and I think after watching the news the last 42 hours of the storming of Capitol Hill, this is like the most gray area I've seen with regard to like this freedom of speech. Like, can you dog whistle? Essentially, I don't even know how to quantify what had exactly happened to incite essentially several thousands of Trump supporters, supposedly.
Yeah, there is that claim out there of Trump incited the riot into the capital of the United States.
Yeah, there's also other claims I've met on Facebook in the last 42 hours that said this is a false flag operation. Yeah. So I don't know how popular this idea is, but there's this other claim from the right that says this is a false flag operation by the left to come in here and make it appear. I tried to SE that claim a little bit. Like, I try to SE everything that I don't necessarily resonate with, or I don't know how people can come to these conclusions. So I asked, if this wasn't a false flag operation, what should I look for? What evidence should we look for to see whether or not this is a false flag operation? And I think I SE'd this person one too many times because they kind of just said, I'm not going to answer your question, which is unfortunate because I do want to open my mind to that possibility. You know, yeah, I think my confidence is very low on that. But maybe I'm the one with confirmation bias here, right? And how would I know that I have confirmation bias or not unless I look for the thing that would make me lower my confidence about it? And I think it's a shame that this person didn't want to answer the question. But I'm working on my candor with it. I think it's because they know me pretty well. We've had like 100 conversations about masks. Like several months ago, they thought masks were useless, and I went all out on the SE discussion with masks with them. So I think that they're a little worried about me there. But so, what do you guys think about the? I mean, is what Donald Trump did? The claim is that he essentially was dog whistling, inciting a riot. I think, is that the claim that you heard?
I mean, I really don't know, because like, especially since it happened so recently, I think we're probably going to get more and more conflicting reports. But as far as I've heard, he was having a rally rather to protest the election results because of his election fraud claims, and he said something that could be interpreted as inciting riots. Like he said something like let's go farther with this. I really don't know the exact quote, which is important to parse this, to know how to parse this, but like that apparently kind of like inspired people to do this shit. And I mean, I don't know, man. Like the only silver lining in this that I can see is that it seems like it wasn't this really well thought out, really well organized or planned thing with thousands of well-armed militia who had a really good plan. It seems like it was kind of just a spontaneous clusterfuck of people going like, yeah, fuck the government. Yeah, we're going to go storm the Capitol building and then take selfies of ourselves committing crimes and stuff like that. So, I mean, I don't know. But yeah, like how this is related to free speech is a very, very interesting thing too. And it really applies to the documentary too, because like some people have been saying that Trump, like literally comparing Trump to Hitler and stuff, and saying that he's going to do this crazy authoritarian shit. And although I am not a fan of Trump, have been saying, no, come on, man, that's bullshit. Nothing like that's going to happen. But clearly, I was proven wrong on that, and a lot of other people were proven wrong about this too. So. But so
cat's knocking things off the counters.
Yeah, so I don't know. I'm cautiously optimistic, but I mean, it could get worse. I mean, I live in Canada, so this is more relevant for you guys than me. So I mean, like, what do you think? What do you guys think in particular?
Nathan, your channel is Abstract Activist. We can just abstract this instead of arguing over if whatever he did say counts as incitement.
Yeah.
Just what if a president incited a riot of at least
a different situation?
At least 10, just abstractly, President of the United States incites a riot of at least 10 people to infiltrate the U.S. Capitol building. If that happened, what should be the punishment, or what should happen?
So in this thought experiment, is it a very direct message, like, we're going to take that, we're going to go in and take over? If somebody says that?
Whatever clearly passes the bar of incitement to a riot.
Clearly passes.
I assume that is illegal.
Yeah, I believe that
I don't
is.
know what, I don't know
is
what
one of the three
law.
things, the three major limitations to free speech.
Yeah, I assume that is on the books a law illegal.
Right. Yeah.
Okay. That's another interesting thing that I've heard sort of related to that, is that I've heard people say that Trump could pardon himself for something, but I've also heard that an incumbent president cannot be charged with crimes. So how could he pardon himself if he's not actually charged with crimes? And if, like, is he going to be held criminally responsible for this? And if so, what's going to happen? Is it going to have to be after he is no longer officially president? Like, are they actually going to be able to do something like that for him? Would it cause more riots if he actually was put in jail? I mean, this is a lot of interesting things to think about.
I'm not, a lawyer. I don't know the law
I don't
enough to like have a qualified opinion about this. I would assume it would be something like, I don't even know what. It's so crazy. I don't even know what would happen. It's never happened, as far as I can tell, that a sitting president has done something that egregious and unlawful, that is so like clear against their their own citizens, and like what I don't even know. I would assume the Congress could impeach him. That's one thing, and remove him from office because of some, I don't know what the words are for the clause of it around impeachment. I would assume that would apply to be a thing that could impeach a president. So that could happen. And then I don't even know about what criminal charges could go before or after impeachment. I don't even know. I'm not an expert on this.
Yeah, in terms of impeachment, I'm not a legal or political expert, of course, either, but based on what I was following with him being impeached for the Russiagate stuff, it seems like the process is that he can be impeached, but then like what happened with that, I think, is that he was impeached, but then he was found like innocent of any criminal charges. So if he is impeached, if that's the case, he can be impeached, but then he could possibly not be charged. But it seems like, of course, with this shit, like, especially since it literally has been drumming up bipartisan support for confirming Biden as president, it seems like he would be much more likely to actually be criminally prosecuted if he was impeached for this. So yeah, I don't know.
Yeah, like the House impeaches and then the Senate has the trial. If he went through the trial and was convicted of whatever, then he is removed from office. Then what happens? I don't even know.
Right. Yeah.
Yeah, bureaucracy. There's a lot of layers to this onion. Though, to answer the abstract question, I think that depends on. It's so hard because what should the punishment be is a different question than what should the bar be for inciting a riot. And maybe there's instances in which punishment should be lenient. Though, yeah, there should be repercussions for somebody who incites a riot. Otherwise, people would just incite riots. The question I think that's most interesting today is this inciting a riot? Is this... Because it's not direct, though this is the way Donald Trump has always operated, the gray area of his I don't even know how you quantify it. His dog whistling, it's always just bordering, teetering on the edge of something that is breaking a rule, but not exactly breaking a rule. And this happened, like, I think people are just upset because even just a few days ago, Donald Trump was caught on a phone call asking for a specific number of votes.
Yeah, I heard that. Yeah.
From a governor. And if you do that, if you use your power to essentially put downward pressure on another political leader, a governor of a state, and essentially not asking to look into a potential crime, well, asking to look into a potential crime and making it clear that you believe that there was a potential crime, but then saying, all I want is a certain number of votes, which is different than the crime, right? The crime would be one thing. I think that I was cheated. That's column A. Column B is, therefore I need 11,280 votes or whatever the number was. And that sounds like making a demand, but it's not exactly making a demand. It's saying, this is how much I believe I was cheated by, but clearly that's not an honest way to... If you were in a position where you felt like you were cheated of votes, would you have in mind the exact number and have that number be exactly one more than you need to win the state?
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
So that to me is a clear violation of your constitutional oath to carry out in however it's worded, good faith or whatever, to carry out your duties to defend the Constitution. And if the Constitution says the person who carries the state gets the electoral votes, man, it's just like, I think people were upset to hear that. And then they were upset the next day when Georgia won for the Democrats. So now the Democrats have the House and the Senate and the presidency, right? And so Republicans, I mean, we generally have like an 8-year swing. Liberals have it for 8 years, Republicans have it for 8 years. And rarely does the country decide, you know what, no, this is 4 years, it's shorter. And this is one of those times. The last time was Jimmy Carter, I think, or I guess George W. Bush or George H. Bush after Reagan. But normally there's a pendulum swing, and people, I think the right and conservatives have suffered 3 major losses 3 days in a row in terms of like the media beating up their side and they feel, and probably for good reason, Donald Trump did some horrible things on that phone call, and then they probably fairly lost the Georgia Senate race, and then they have this huge fiasco of Capitol Hill being rushed, and so I think that there's just going to be people upset for a while. And so I think that it's important that we engage with people to figure out what it is that they believe, and I've been dealing with that lately with talking to people who think that it's a false flag operation of actual Antifa people storming the Capitol, not.
Do we know what the exact statement he made that would be the nearest qualification towards inciting a riot? Because I'm reading through his speech yesterday. I saw his tweets yesterday afternoon, like after it started happening, and there's talking about disconfirmation criteria. There's a lot of disconfirming quotes and evidence that would lead someone to be less confident he was intending to incite a riot. So what is the thing? I can't find anything that would jump out to me as inciting a riot. What is the closest thing, do you think?
Yeah, like I'd have to look over like exact phraseology again. I think what I've heard, I need to go over it again, but I think what I've heard, maybe I should just look it up.
Here's the link there.
Oh, good.
If you Google "did Trump incite riots," there are lots of articles that say he did, but I can't find any quotes of what he said.
This is why it's like a very gray area thing, because he didn't directly say, like, I want you to all march into Capitol Hill. Like, is that what's required? Is that the bar is the question?
He said, we're going to walk down to Capitol. We're going to cheer on our brave senators and congressmen and women. We're probably not going to be cheering so much for them because you'll never take back our country with weakness. You have to show strength and you have to be strong. Is that the closest thing? He also said, I know that everyone here will soon be marching over to the Capitol building to peacefully and patriotically make your voices heard.
Oh,
yeah.
If he said peacefully, I mean, I think that's a key thing. That means that perhaps he didn't exactly like directly or legally speaking incite riots.
Yeah, and then yesterday at around 2:30, he tweeted, "Please support our Capitol Police and law enforcement. They are truly on the side of our country. Stay peaceful!" ! An hour later, he said, "I am asking everyone at the U.S. Capitol to remain peaceful, no violence!" ! Remember, we are the party of law and order. Respect the law and our great men and women in blue. Thank you. So,
if that's what he actually said, that sounds like he wasn't actually directly inciting riots, but he was like perhaps like really encouraging animosity in the extreme.
He could have done it and tried to walk it back, but I'm not seeing anything in the speech, and I don't know.
Then the other line of argument, which is also indirect and not very direct, and I would agree that's not, in my view, very direct in terms of inciting a riot. Though the other thing I'm hearing from the left is more talk about, he's putting out this narrative that he was cheated and this election was stolen from him. And under the First Amendment, this is another First Amendment thing, like he ought to be able to say that if that's what he truly believes. And we have to like look into why he thinks that. Though if you have like 60 court cases, or maybe it was like 59 court cases by now that he's lawsuits to overturn various elections across the country, and you lose all but one of them or all of them, isn't that the way you should prove or go about proving or gathering evidence for your claim through the court system? And if the court system says you haven't done anything, at what point do we keep listening to somebody? We're in an unfortunate situation because we want to protect his freedom to say whatever. At the same time, if it's causing millions of people to believe an untrue thing to the point where there's civil unrest as a result, We just need more speech. I mean, the answer is always more speech. In this case, we need to talk to people who believe this stuff and ask them why, and be open to the idea that they are right. And this is why I'm sad that I tried to talk to my friend earlier today through Facebook, and that's probably like the worst way to do it. But I just wanted to know why they believed it, why they believed it was a false flag operation, why they were in such disbelief that there was Trump supporters rioting and looting on Capitol Hill, and a woman died too. Like, don't forget, a woman was shot in the neck and bled out and died. So, go ahead.
Yeah, we don't even have to go with the high crimes and misdemeanors portion of impeachment. It's like that's treason to incite a riot on the Capitol. That is, that's treasonous against institutions of the country, obviously. So, if that's just something else to think about, but.
Yeah, for sure.
Is it really an incitement of an attack on an institution of the government?
Did he say specifically, like, we're going to the Capitol Hill? Like, did he say where he wanted people to march?
That's what people were there for, to be all around the Capitol. There was a speech, and then people usually, march somewhere, and Capitol is usually the place to go. It's the city hall of, not only Washington, the country, Washington D.C. So there's a lot of, we're going to go to the Capitol after the speech, pretty much. That's just a general thing for most rallies in D.C., I think.
Okay. Yeah, that's I hadn't heard that claim about how this was actually like a false flag for, like, a leftist false flag for Antifa or something like that. Like,
this could be like a weird branch somewhere on Facebook, man. I don't know, but
yeah, like that. I don't understand that. I really want to know more about why someone would think that, because that doesn't make any sense to me.
Well, there is motive for, like,
Antifa to make the right look bad.
Yeah, if the right
that's true,
is made to look bad, then the next administration could crack down on things harder. This could be used as an excuse to crack down, on right-wing protesters in the future. Social media companies could use this as an excuse to censor people. So that's the motive, I would assume.
After talking to a lot of conspiracy theorists, I see a trend in what motivates a belief in a conspiracy. And, the classic street epistemology approach would be on a scale of confidence. Where are you? How confident are you? And what would it take to move you or slide you on that scale? And what got you to your high degree of confidence if you believe this thing to be true? And a red flag for me, that somebody might not know what it takes to move down on their scale, like before I even ask the question. It's almost typical for me to hear somebody not know how to identify something that will slide them down their scale if they believe the reason why they're highly confident, the thing that got them to an 80 or a 90 on their scale, is they know the motivation of their enemies, or they believe they know why a conspiracy is motivated to do something. In other words, I understand what they think, so much so that alone, my understanding of what they want, you could say, like, pharmaceutical companies, they just want to keep you sick, right? So they want to keep you sick. So here's they're not trying to really cure anything. They're just trying to crank out pharmaceutical drugs, and my understanding that that's their motivation is getting me to a 90, that they're keeping the cure from us. It's like another way of thinking about a conspiracy theory,
right?
So that's something that I hear often. And if somebody's like, oh, I know what they think and how so therefore I'm justified to believe this is true because they're that evil, then they typically don't, in my experience, when I interview people like that, don't have criteria that's easily accessible for them to tell me how they would slide down their scale.
That's interesting too, because, like, I see that all the time with people. The motivation behind their beliefs being that they know how the other person thinks, like they can read minds. And that's, like, to me, that's certainly not exclusive to conspiracy theorists. Like, even people who have strong political beliefs. Like when I've had some political disagreements with people, sometimes it's over them believing that they know what the other person is thinking. Like this is relevant to that documentary and to what happened yesterday too, because people, there are definitely people who claim to know what Trump is thinking and what the reasons were that he speaked in this way. And like I'm sure there's mind reading going on all over the place. Like what were these we know what these Trump supporters were thinking, or if you believe like the other side of it, like we believe what these Antifa supporters were thinking, or like in general, you could say, like, if you're talking about someone like the most morally reprehensible person that you can imagine, like a Nazi, for example, or even like trying to imagine the motivation for Trump inciting riots, if he actually did incite riots, like what would the motivation actually be for things like that? Because it's almost never what people, in my experience anyway, it's almost never what people actually say the other person's thoughts are that are why they actually did or said whatever people are mad about.
That's a good point. Like, how would it benefit Donald Trump for him to be found guilty of inciting a riot? So, like, that's maybe a good way for us to doubt his desire to incite a riot. Like, would he benefit if there was a riot in his name on Capitol Hill? Does he think that would make him look good? Maybe he did think that would make him look good before it happened, and then he walked it back later. There's really no way to tell, and this is why it's not great evidence. Our assumption of somebody else's motivations, unless they are caught saying it, we have to give people the benefit of the doubt, even if we don't find ourselves politically aligned with them, and seek out better evidence for what we believe. It's hard to say.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. What do you think, Reid?
I just
see you looking out there.
I don't know if I'm trying to look at the Wikipedia for incitement, and I'm trying to find the last time someone was convicted of this and what happened. So, like, I don't know enough about law to have this conversation.
Honestly, I think the biggest, if there's a crime in the last week, it isn't so much this incitement of a riot as it is him asking for a specific number of votes. That's the thing that I think is, but that's not related to free speech so much for the topic of today. But the incitement of a riot, like, I don't know, unless we have to be really cautious about the way in which we place any restrictions on the First Amendment. Because accidents can happen and we can find ourselves on the other side of that someday. So we have to be really liberal with our approach to freedom of speech and make sure that people are awarded every benefit of the doubt when we can afford it.
Yeah.
It's the
this is still messed up.
The legalese text is imminent lawless action is the thing that is not protected. Like you can't like say, at some time in the future at somewhere there should be a riot. That doesn't count. It has to be imminent lawless action, something local, something right there, that could happen. But I still don't know too much about it.
So Reid, you sent this link in the chat. Is that link for the quiz or whatever? Or
that's his transcript of his speech.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you.
What quiz were you talking about?
So I don't want to derail the conversation, but just a couple months ago, the consistency quiz that you did about freedom of speech on Discord, or that you posted. Do you remember that?
Was it just freedom of speech or other?
It might have been for
general testing.
It might have been just in general, but the one that stuck out in my mind the most was a bunch of Nazis are at a park and they're slightly obstructing traffic. is there obstructing the traffic enough to revoke the warrant for the whole protest? And I can't remember exactly, but I found it to be a good test because later down the road, there was like a different group of people. They weren't Nazis or somebody else. And the question was, do we hold them to the same exact standard?
Yeah, I think it was.
And I found it to be
procedural fairness test, I think, is what it was really about. It's like, does my in group get a standard and an out group get a double standard? So I think that's what, and free speech was just an example of that. I don't know where that quiz is, though.
Oh, shoot. That's okay. Another day.
Okay.
That was a really good way to check for checking for consistency is a big important thing when it comes to freedom of speech.
Yeah. And it's like a test of you have to abstract the principles out of the individual situations and then test them against each other.
Yeah. Yeah, in terms of that legal definition that you read, I think that the word imminent is the key word there. Like what qualifies as imminent? It was something like imminent illegal action or something like that. You said. I think the word imminent is how do you define what qualifies as imminent? I think that's the key question in terms of that.
Yeah, this is where it didn't sound, when Reid read it back to me, all the quotes, it didn't sound like he was saying anything imminent. But if he were to say, like, right now we're going to march on the Capitol, well, he said peacefully. I mean, he said all the things that you need to say to temper a crowd, I suppose, but the way in which he said it, it's just like so borderline. And he's just always pushing the limit of our ability to tolerate.
If he hasn't been charged by now, I think it's a moot point anyway. If he was, obviously, every single lawyer in the country is looking at this, and if he hasn't been charged yet, like, I don't even know where a charge is.
He probably won't be. What do you think? What do you think about then his Twitter account and Facebook account and YouTube account, all going on hold or something on like every single social media platform basically is silencing him?
Let me check his Twitter, see if he's tweeted anything. He should be out of the lock, a 12-hour lock, right?
Okay, so that's an interesting thing to discuss too. Also, it sounds like maybe you're a little bit more clear about this than me, Reid, because I had heard before you sent that link in our chat that his Twitter was banned, but is it actually just the case that those like few specific tweets were blocked for a certain period of time?
3 tweets, I think, right?
He's being held ransom. If he does not delete the tweets, then he can't get his account reinstated.
Okay.
And he was on a 12-hour suspension. Obviously, that I think it's been more than 12 hours since they suspended him, I assume. Mm-hmm. And Facebook has now suspended him for until for 20 days or however long it's going to be until Biden is sworn in.
Okay.
So that's concerning.
That's a different situation, though. It's a bit of a concern. I think, though, it's a bit of a different situation because it's not the government; it's a private company. So this is like within the realm of, should the government step in and tell you that you have to let somebody else talk in your house and that you can't kick somebody out? There's like another layer of complications because these are private companies we're talking about who create their own standards for freedom of speech. So, oh, nice. Hey, what's up, person? But so it's hard. I mean, obviously more freedom of speech is better, but at the end of the day, do we really want the government to come in and say, hey, this private company has to let somebody talk?
Yeah. Yeah, that's a very interesting aspect of this whole issue. Like should private companies have the same standards as government? Do we want to set the precedent that the government can control the free speech of specific people on Twitter? If so, if whether the answer is yes or no, like where should the line be drawn? Like, should people be allowed to incite violence on Twitter? And then if so, what qualifies as inciting violence on Twitter? And I mean, I don't know, like in my opinion, just in terms of Trump's tweets getting banned or his account getting banned, I've always kind of had the opinion that you should not ban his Twitter account because, like, for one thing, even though I think the veneer of the position of president is more elevated than it should be, perhaps, and perhaps one of the silver linings of Trump is that he's shown that the emperor has no clothes in that respect. Like, the president is just a person like anyone else. Like it is the president's Twitter account that you're talking about banning, who is seen as like one of the most important figures in the entire world, regardless of what president we're talking about. And for strategically speaking too, if you ban Trump, like, what are half of people on YouTube and Twitter going to talk about all day?
Mm-hmm. So, like, a general question would just be, should social media companies be allowed to censor anyone they want, however they want?
Yeah.
Or should there be restrictions on that?
Yeah.
And I don't know if I have much of like my gut reaction is to let social media companies do what they want. And if another social media company has more lenient rules and people want more lenient rights to say what they want, they'll go to that platform. So I think that in that way they get to govern themselves, and people can be a part of the kinds of communities that they want to be a part of. And so, like, less restriction again is better, in which case Twitter is totally within their rights to censor the president. Mm-hmm. This is it's tough. I don't know but then again, like, what would change my mind on that? I don't know. I think I need to give this more thought. I've already given it a lot of thought this year because Trump has just gotten himself and the culture of the United States in a lot of trouble this year. And it's been giving me anxiety, like, all the time, like, constantly getting anxiety from the way he reacted. Because I live in Portland, Oregon. So, like, the way he treated Portland, Oregon during the Black Lives Matter protests, where people were indiscriminately picked up off the street. And also just the difference also in the way that police treated the Portland protests. And I guess there could be plenty of good arguments to say that, like, the riots yesterday weren't really anticipated. And so the local law enforcement were completely caught off guard. But there was definitely a difference. It's almost like I think I need to look into this more, but it almost was like Donald Trump turned a blind eye to the protests. Like, there was no reinforcement of law enforcement. I mean, I guess, I don't know. I feel like it's too early for me to say. I need to do more research before I'm, like, too confident about anything. But yeah, it just didn't seem like there was an equal and opposite opposing law enforcement in Washington, D.C. that there was in here, Portland, Oregon, for the longest time. So,
mm-hmm. Yeah. And in terms of what you were saying about Twitter and free speech too, like one thing that I've been talking about and thinking about a lot recently is the effects of social media on like public discourse, and how the social media algorithms are specifically designed to promote the most extreme content possible because that gets the most views. And this has been the sort of argument that some people have used to suppress speech in terms of suppressing some claims like flat earthers or something like that.
Changing the algorithm so they don't get as much exposure.
Yeah. Because like, if you believe that the earth is flat, then you can go on YouTube and then you'll see all these millions of videos about the earth being flat, even though maybe 1,000 people in the entire world actually have that belief. But then in terms of that, this is where I agree with what you said about how more speech can be better, because if you actually allow people to make videos about how the earth is flat, then people can also make videos about how these people saying that the earth is flat is bullshit, and just pile this mountain of evidence about how the earth is not flat on top of all of those claims. So
yeah, or facilitate a discussion about how to critically think.
Yeah.
About about what would change our mind if we thought the earth was flat, what would convince us that it's round. And that exercise could be fruitful, I mean, for some people out there who haven't taken some critical thinking courses or science courses. That could open a door to some good conversations. Though, what would change our mind about that? And man, it's just like, if there were fewer flat earthers 20 or 30 years ago, and there's like 10 times the amount of flat earthers today, and and let's say we know for sure that the internet is a direct cause of that. Do we want to do anything about that? Like, if the internet does cause a 10-fold increase in the number of flat earthers, is that a problem? Do we find that concerning? How would we, and I think I consider it a problem, but I would think that the solution is more conversation, though people have to be willing to have the conversation. And if there are people out there that just say, I can't be bothered talking to flat earthers, or I won't entertain those discussions, or I won't investigate beliefs that do not match my own, then we're going to be further alienated and further divided. So people have to want to have conversations with those they disagree, as the only way to counter a kind of like de-evolution of our critical faculties and our ability to communicate with each other.
Yeah. I mean,
I see your gears are turning there, Reid.
Just if flat earthers have the right to be wrong in society, they are a stand-in for like a group of people who have the next unorthodox opinion that is just seen as just as wrong. But if flat earthers can be wrong, and this new minority of people have a right idea that people don't believe that would help the society, then that allows that new idea to come into the society easier.
Yeah.
So it's a good, it's like paradoxically a good thing that we'll, people have the right to be wrong in liberal societies. This allows ideas to be, go through the diffusion of innovations, as mixed martial arts talks about. We need diffuse society for ideas to be diffused, and the innovative ideas are the most useful ideas. So it's a good thing.
Yeah, that's it. That's interesting. That you mentioned, Nathan, that you think it is a bad thing for people to believe that the Earth is flat. Because I personally don't think.
If it's not true, if it's true, then it's great.
Okay, see. This is one thing that I actually noticed, and I kind of noticed about what you guys have been talking about a little bit in your conversations on the Street Epistemology channel lately, in terms of like religion and science as well, because I used to have that opinion that if someone believes something that's not true, then it's a problem. And maybe I'm still just as biased as I used to be, because I still, like anyone with a pulse, really, I am more emotional about issues that I care about. So I guess maybe it's more that I care less than I used to, especially when I used to be a militant atheist, because I would say I'm still an atheist, but I'm more of an agnostic atheist, because I always say that I don't believe in the existence of any gods, but I'm open to being proven 100% wrong about every single one of my beliefs, and my lack of knowledge about everything is profound. And I also I very much appreciate science, but I question it more than I used to, like specifically scientism. And so that's a long way of saying that I don't have a problem with people. Generally, I literally try to not have a problem with people having beliefs that I think are not true, because I just figure if those beliefs are not harming anyone, then I don't see any problem with people believing things that are not true. Like I mentioned religion too. I don't have a problem with people believing in religion or being against science or believing that the earth is flat or something like that. So this is one area where we actually, it sounds like we kind of disagree a little bit. So it'd be interesting to talk to you guys a little bit more about that.
This is the clear distinction between the liberal principle and the humanitarian principle in Kindly Inquisitors. The humanitarian principle is, I'll say it, any of the above, but with the condition that the first priority be to cause no hurt, no harm. But the liberal principle is the checking of each by each through public criticism is the only legitimate way to decide who is right. So if we're talking about knowledge in society, go with the liberal principle. I think you would agree with the liberal principle in terms of knowledge, but in general, it kind of relates to just tolerance in general.
Mm-hmm.
People have the right to be wrong. People have the right to be offensively wrong. That's fine. But if you want your ideas respected as knowledge, you have to submit it to public checking. And I could ignore you or ridicule you if you don't do that. So be prepared. Just play the game or be ignored or ridiculed.
Yeah. This comes up a lot in my street epistemology interviews. If I do like a workshop format, which is more like long form, this is usually like number 18 on a little survey that I have that I use a lot. The most important criteria for my beliefs is that they match reality. And for some people, it's not the most important thing. Whatever makes them feel good is maybe the most important criteria for their beliefs. They don't necessarily hold their ideas being true as the most important criteria for believing in something. And I want to be tolerant of that idea, though that's not my idea. Like, I don't hold that to be the case. I agree to this statement, and I think that the most important criteria for my beliefs is that they are true and that they match most perfectly reality. Now, not every belief, and I don't think that like there's room for fun and there's room for art and there's room for all that stuff. Though I think the number one cause for conflict among society, for my relationships, for friends and family, for my culture and my community, is the thing that brings us together is our shared values. And we're more likely to attain shared values if we have understanding for one another and understanding for how we know things, and if we're open to being wrong. And of course, we want to be tolerant of beliefs. And I think being tolerant of beliefs is different than being correct or having the best understanding of something. So yeah, I mean, it's just a conflict resolution tool. Go ahead.
Yeah, that's interesting. I would say, like, I like to clarify too, because I do occasionally get carried, like, I occasionally like swing too far in the other direction of the way I used to be. Like, I was like a diehard militant atheist and rationalist and all that sort of things, and now I've gotten to the point where I criticize like Enlightenment values and science and even atheism and stuff like that, and even valuing truth a lot. Even like because I've read the work of a lot of philosophers who have talked about this and written about this a lot. I like to clarify that, like, I still highly value truth and evidence, and when I'm talking with someone about something that we disagree about, usually I'm asking them, like, what evidence is there for this? How do you know this? And that sort of thing. But I also like I would say that, well, having my values being true is very important to me. It's much less important to me than it used to be. And to me, what's more important to me than that is having beliefs that I guess are both true and kind of like allow me to live well with others in society and that sort of thing. Kind of like what both of you guys are just saying to an extent too.
Yep. Human society is a constrained system. Human psychology is a constrained system. Against the laws of nature, we can only do things, as a society in certain ways and see how it goes. Communism didn't work. Liberalism seems to work. So these are true facts about human society. So, and we can argue about, details, but this
like, how do you define work?
Yeah.
Yeah.
And human beings have well-being as a capacity for them, and that only works in some ways in this reality. We can discover more about that. There are things to know about it, and I don't know. That's how I think about it.
Yeah, for sure. Yeah. Well.
So what do we think is going to happen with Donald Trump? Is he going to get impeached? Any predictions?
I don't know, man. If I had to guess, I'm not sure. Let's think about what the most likely outcome could be. I don't know. Like, I've been so surprised by a lot of things that happened in 2020. Like, before all the stuff with COVID happened, I was fairly certain that Trump was going to get reelected, and then all of this stuff happened, and then all sorts of stuff that I could not have predicted at all happened. Like, I didn't predict a whole bunch of stuff to do with COVID, a whole bunch of stuff to do with Trump, and particularly like literally armed protesters storming the D.C. Capitol building and a woman getting killed. I could not have anticipated that. So, I mean, I don't know. I think there might be a variety of very, very likely outcomes to this. It could be much more likely than before, especially since there's been bipartisan support for Joe Biden being confirmed as president. Now it might actually be pretty possible that he does get impeached and removed from office, or if not, they're just going to wait until he's officially not the president anymore either, which is this month. I'm not sure what specific day that is. Maybe you guys know that, but it's apparently very close to that day anyway. And he'll be he'll probably have to be forced out of office if there's no peaceful transition by that point anyway. So maybe that's more likely. I mean,
I don't think that there's going to be any repercussions for him. If anything, there's going to be some charges maybe after he's gone. I don't think that there's enough time. Knowing how long it took for the previous impeachment, I don't know if they're going to be able to have enough days left in the presidency to actually carry anything out. I'm pretty 50-50 about it, though. It could go really either way. They might just rush something through right now and do a impeachment in name only and don't actually kick him out and just kind of dock him one more on his record, just to stick it to him.
The Senate is still controlled by Republicans at this point, so I don't think anything's going to happen. It's not going to happen.
But it's still interesting to think about.
Does he still have or as far as you guys knew last time you checked, does he still have majority support of Republicans?
Depends on how you measure that, because they just all agreed, except for Ted Cruz and maybe a few others. I haven't been closely focusing on the news that much, but I know that Ted Cruz said that he did not support the Electoral College acknowledging Joe Biden as the next president. So other than that, I mean, it depends on how you measure it. I mean, it's a hard question to answer. We'll find out when he is out of power, and I think people may change their tune about him a little bit after that.
Yeah, it'll be interesting to see whether he's criminally prosecuted in any way when he's no longer president, because I mean, I'm pretty skeptical of that too, that he will suffer criminal charges. But I mean, like I said, I've been surprised by a hell of a lot of stuff that happened before, and this could end up being the first time that a president actually has suffered legal consequences. I mean, like previous presidents, like Obama, George W. Bush, and like pretty much every other president, you could definitely make. Well, I mean, I'm no legal expert, but I'm pretty sure you could make arguments that they are war criminals for all the like perpetuating wars overseas and stuff that they did, and they've never suffered any legal prosecutions for that or any other things that they did. But I don't know. I mean, the question is how different is it going to be with Trump? I mean, like I said, it wouldn't surprise me if he still doesn't suffer legal consequences, but at this point, I wouldn't be surprised if he does either.
Yeah, I don't know. So, with regards to freedom of speech, is there anything else that happened in either the news lately or with this documentary? Anything else that anybody has to mention?
Well, one of the things that I thought was interesting in the documentary that immediately comes to mind is that Ira had some public disagreements with even conservative public intellectuals about defending the free speech of Nazis, which is interesting because I haven't really seen that in today's world, because of course William F. Buckley Jr. was against him supporting the free speech of Nazis. So what did you guys think about that part of the film? Because I haven't seen, like I said, I haven't seen something like that before.
It's kind of like the logical endpoint of free speech. It's like the worst possible people. And I think it's a great indication of how the U.S. has this great value of freedom of speech. And it's inspiring to me, even though it's like weird defending the rights of the most horrible people. It's really not about the horrible people. It's about the proxy again. Who in the future will this protect, this right that we need? So if Nazis can be protected, we are safe, to be protected ourselves. It's just a great thing.
Plus, it empowers us that don't agree with those people, because it allows us to identify them and identify the problem, and also exercise our ability to communicate with them, figure out what it would take to interact with people who believe in deplorable things. How do we have conversations with people who believe in a flat earth? And how important is it to us to intervene in beliefs that are not reliable or almost certainly very likely not true at all? When is it time to be an advocate for the truth? And how important is the truth to us? And does it matter what the claim is? And I think allowing people to be wrong all around us empowers us with the ability to engage with those ideas and those types of people. And that exercises our ability for critical thinking, exercises our ability to talk with people who don't agree with us, and empowers us to resolve our differences in the light of day for everyone to see. So that way we can settle our disputes. And if we are hiding behind this veneer of like, I can't say these things or else I'll be persecuted, we won't be able to identify those people. We won't exercise our ability to engage with those people. And that's what really matters to me. That's why I support even the worst speech, so long as it doesn't violate those. I think there's like 3 main violations for the First Amendment, which is like, you can't yell fire in a crowded theater, right? You can't like cry wolf. You can't say an impending danger is coming to us if you knowingly know there is no impending danger. You can't incite violence, and you can't incite a riot. I think there's a difference between inciting violence and a riot. And there's probably a lot more other things that you can't do, like libel and all that. But for the most part, we want to give people the most freedom we can afford them and be really liberal with our values there.
Yeah.
And that's
well said.
all I have to say on it.
Yeah, I mean, this is just making me think too. I mean, you and I talked before, Reid, about that documentary called Accidental Courtesy, which is about that guy Daryl Davis, who's a black musician who for decades has been literally befriending Nazis and KKK members and then gradually converting them by, coming to the understanding that they are actually real people, and you can empathize with even people who have like what you see as morally reprehensible views. And it's important to be able, like you were saying, to be able to have like civilized disagreements with people who we disagree with. And that's one thing that I appreciate a lot about street epistemology in general, and about you guys both doing street epistemology and having street epistemology channels. I personally think that I kind of like lack patience for it sometimes. It is something that I aspire to, but honestly, like a lot of the time, I'm just too interested in expressing my own message. So but I am also like, one thing that appeals about a street epistemology to me is that I am very interested with talking with people who I disagree with, and like talking about both of our opinions and where we disagree and why. And I always think that's an interesting practice.
Yeah, you got to get on the SE Discord. You can do that all day, every day.
Yeah.
People will be glad to disagree with you.
Yeah.
And civilly with SE.
Yeah.
Here's an SE question for you. If you could make twice the impact on resolving a dispute about the best understanding of what is true between you and some other person about an issue that's important to you, if you could do that and have twice the impact in question form than in statement form, would you work harder to be more patient and ask questions only, or take a stronger street epistemology approach, if that were the case?
Yeah, I would say so. And I mean, honestly, when I have had enough, at times when I have had enough discipline to focus, to try to like repress my knee-jerk emotional reactions and just kind of ask people Socratic questions about why they believe what they do when I'm disagreeing with someone, usually that does work out better for like having them reveal that maybe some of their claims are baseless, or because I have the patience to do that, finding out that their claims have like more merit than I think they do. But
or that you gave them credit for.
Yeah, for sure.
Yeah, I find that happens to me all the time. And then the cherry on top that always makes it worth it every time, no matter what, is almost at the end of nearly every SE conversation, I feel like I've earned their respect, which to me is just as important, if not more important, than resolving any kind of dispute about the best understanding of what's true. Because you have respect for one another, you understand one another, and now you're not so different, even though you may think very different things, and you can continue agreeing to disagree. But now there's less overall conflict and more peace. So, and then maybe they're more open to hearing you out in the future, since you've now earned their respect. And that's a big part of it as well.
And I like, it's great when you can do that too. Like, since I've become more open-minded about talking with religious people and talking with people who I agree with politically, or I mean disagree with politically, for example. Like I have friends now who I talk to regularly who have more conservative views than me, and some people who have like more progressive views than me. And I also have like kind of like conservative Orthodox Christian friend Shane Kennedy, who I've done a bunch of chats with on this channel about like theology and philosophy and stuff. And because I'm more open-minded about those sorts of subjects that I used to be, it usually leads to really interesting conversations. And because we've established that mutual respect for each other that you mentioned, it's good to, makes it easy to kind of have lots of conversations that result in us understanding each other's opinions better and having more respect for them. And then both of us have more respect when that person points out what seem like flaws in our views or why we disagree.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Yeah. All right.
I would be remiss if I didn't mention Daryl Davis as like a personal hero of mine. He's somebody who
he's the accidental courtesy guy. Yeah.
Accidental Courtesy. He's that black musician I mentioned in that documentary.
Oh, okay, right.
Yeah.
Well, then I mention him again.
Yeah.
Love Daryl.
If somebody's watching this and they've not looked up Daryl Davis, who converted like over 200 Ku Klux Klan members, look it up, please.
Yeah, definitely.
Inspiring. And he didn't really use street epistemology per se, though he had the same, in my view, the same mentality behind what I think street epistemology is really all about. Letting people be wrong and caring what they believe, even if you find it deplorable, and draw yourself to their understanding, and they may find themselves where you see things.
Yeah, for sure. Well, what Daryl Davis does is he, like one of the main things he does is he ends up basically, like I said, like realizing that even Nazis are people too who have families and can be empathized with. And then in the process of becoming friends with this people, the Nazis or KKK members, they gradually realize, hey, maybe not all black people are that bad. This guy's pretty cool. He's intelligent and he's a good guy. Maybe not all black people are bad. And then eventually it can progress to, maybe the KKK and Nazis are kind of fucked up. I'm not going to be one anymore.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Yeah. So, yeah. All right. Anything else that you guys wanted to say about these topics?
No, thanks, Andrew, for having us on. And
that was great.
I think in a few months, the sequel to Kindly Inquisitors is going to come out. It's called The Constitution of Knowledge. I think that's the working title. I'd love to do another like chapter by chapter breakdown of a book, and I think that's a good candidate.
Sure, man. Great idea. Yeah. Let me know when it comes out, and yeah, I'd love to discuss it. Yeah.
I think it's in May or something.
Okay. Cool. And could you send me that link for the Street Epistemology Discord again? I actually totally forgot about it after you send it to me, and I would love to do that.
Sure.
Cool. All right. Thanks so much, guys. So I'll say all the stuff I like to say at the end of my videos here, and then you guys can give any plugs for your channels and whatnot, or any other last words before we end it. So thanks a lot to those of you who watched this. Especially to those of you who clicked the like button on the video, and please subscribe to the channel if you haven't done so already, and click that bell to be notified when I come out with new videos. Got lots more planned pretty soon, and especially thanks to those of you who give me money on Patreon, which I greatly appreciate, and I'll put the link for that page in the description of this video, as I always do. And as I always say, I love you all. Keep being the tiny beam of light that shines through the almost impenetrable darkness in the universe. And most importantly, always remember this: the funk cures all, and groove is in the heart. And try to have nice disagreements with people when you disagree with them, and don't start fucking riots or violent shit like that. And so, yeah, so you guys want to give any plugs for your channels or anything, or any last words there? I know you haven't heard my end spiel there before, Nathan.
No, that's fine. Yeah, I have a channel, Abstract Activist. You can follow me on Twitter, abstract_SE, and I'm occasionally on the Discord as well, the Street Epistemology Discord, so check it out, and I'll put some comments on this video. Yeah, so you can find it there.
Yep. And
awesome. Thanks, guys. And yeah, send me send me your links for your channels and Twitter and stuff like that, and I'll post them in the description for this video.
You can check me out at Cordial Curiosity. Just Google that. You'll find me.
Cool. Yeah. And yeah, check those out for great street epistemology conversations, and the street epistemology channel lately as well. You guys have been doing great analyses of different conversations of people, some that are street epistemology ones, some that are just like conversations. Like I think the most recent one that you guys did on that channel was on that conversation about the Four Horsemen, the famous militant atheists.
Revisiting an old classic.
Yeah. Exactly.
I missed that one by a couple minutes. I wish I'd just jumped back in, but I'll be on there next week. So they're getting better every week. So.
Yeah. Yeah, I find them really interesting, your guys' thoughts on these conversations. All right. So anyway, thanks again, guys. Thanks again, everyone, for watching. Check out the next video next time. Check out Reid and Nathan's channels and the Street Epistemology channel. And adios until next time.
Later.
See ya.